Hi everybody, what's up? My name is Juan, I am just one reader, and it's finally time for my favorite moment of the entire reading year, and that is the time in which I get to share with you guys my favorite 10 books of the year. So I think this year I read around 60 something books, and the quality was just really consistent. I really did a great job this year of selecting the books that I wanted to read and DNFing the books that I was not liking or reading them quickly. So the books that I actually ended up reading in 2017, they were amazing. And this top 10 was actually very easy to choose because these 10 books really did stand out in a very special, significant, meaningful way ever since I first read them and was reading them up until now that the year is over. And some of them I read very early on in the year, some of them I recently read, and they are, I guess, fresh or fresher in my mind. But still, these books have become some of my favorite books of all time. So this is a very, very good list. A good list in terms of it's a very special list. It has a very special place in my reading heart and in my reading history. So without any further ado, let's get started with my top 10 best books of 2017. Coming in at number 10 is Disgrace by J.M. Coetzee. This was a winner of the Man Booker Prize in 1999, and this was just an amazing realistic story about a man and how he causes his own downfall, and downfall in many different ways. It deals with human instincts, with human relationships, and while doing so, it also shows us this setting, which is in South Africa, and its conflict, its beauty, its reality. And he does all of this, just ties everything together beautifully in such a short space of it's a very short novel, and he just captures everything perfectly. The language that he uses is absolutely gorgeous, beautiful. It's not wordy or flowery or like over the top. It's actually quite the opposite. It's very sparse, it's very direct, it's very masculine. It feels very masculine, and it's a very masculine type of story, which I like. It's a great book for critical thinking. I haven't stopped thinking about it ever since I read it, and it's a book in which you can savor and taste every sentence. Coming in at number 9 is The Best American Short Stories of 2014. This is an anthology of short stories edited by Jennifer Egan, and I just adored the experience of reading this collection, this anthology rather. It's an anthology that is quite long. It has a bunch of stories, about 20 or so short stories, and they are all consistently great. There were a couple that maybe were not as fantastic as the rest, but overall this is one of my favorite collections or anthologies that I've ever read. It features very strong, original, genial voices such as T.C. Boyle, Charles Baxter, Lauren Groff, which was my favorite, Karen Russell, Joyce Carol Oates, and many, many, many others. This is just an amazing, amazing book that I would recommend to people who are looking for short story collections or anthologies. There's bound to be something in here that will blow your socks off. Coming in at number 8 is My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier. So when you say Daphne du Maurier, people always think Rebecca. Rebecca, Rebecca, Rebecca. That's like her masterpiece. It's the book that everybody reads. It's the book that everybody loves. Like, there's an obsession for Rebecca. And yes, I did enjoy Rebecca, but this year when I read My Cousin Rachel, I was kind of apprehensive about it because I thought it's never going to live up to Rebecca, right? Well, guess what? This is so much better, in my opinion, so much better than Rebecca. My Cousin Rachel is an amazing, dark tale. It's about betrayal and revenge, and it's just charged. It's a charged reading experience. It's very upsetting and unsettling and unnerving, and as you read, there's something that just feels wrong, and you can never really pinpoint what it is, which I adored. It's a truly suspenseful novel. When people say suspense, sometimes people think like thrillers and like Gone Girl and something very fast-paced, but to me, this is the definition of great suspense. It's just this atmosphere, this everything is just very tense and very like charged. That's just the word, charged with emotion and with dread. And it's a quite long book. It's almost 500 pages in this edition. No, 400 pages. It's not very short, but it's just a very suspenseful ride. The three things that I loved the most about this book were the language. Oh, the use of language is insane in here. The atmosphere, which, as I said, it's to die for. It's gothic and dreadful, and it's painfully awful. And also the characters. It only has a handful of characters, not very many characters, but these characters, particularly, Rachel and Philip, and these characters are just my cousin Rachel. Coming in at number 7 is The Unseen World by Liz Moore. This is a book that everybody who has read it has loved it. I am not the exception to that. I just thought this was one of those rare, emotional, heartwarming experiences. I am not a very emotional type of reader, but this just broke me. This is a heartfelt, truly heartfelt story about family secrets, family truths. It is a story about finding out where you come from and where your identity comes from. It's a book about so many different things, and there's so much to like in here. This is one of those books that I think you could recommend to literally anyone. And there's something in here for any type of reader to enjoy and appreciate. It's a truly emotional ride. I was really trying not to cry at the end of the book. I was really touched and moved. And yeah, the language may not be sensational or anything to die for, but she just captures everything magnificently in this book, and it's just such a fun read. It's a truly page turner, but with a really emotional core. Coming in at number 6 is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. What can I say? This truly is one of the best novels that I've ever read in my life. It is expertly crafted, expertly constructed. I think James Baldwin is a true master of what he does, of his craft. The writing in here is very direct, very beautiful, very elegant. It's crisp and clear and so elegant. It's a wonderful tragedy of a novel. It truly is a tragic story that has so many things to think about that I cannot talk about them in here. The atmosphere is so rich and beautiful, and it serves the story wonderfully and the characters wonderfully. This book is just an example of how simplicity can serve a truly great idea and make a truly great novel. Again, this is one of those books that you think very critically about, and you will get so much more out of it, out of the experience. I just wish more books would be like Giovanni's Room. Coming in at number 5, I have the novel that was probably the most intense and immersive reading experience that I had all year. It also features my favorite character of 2017, and that is American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis. This is a novel that people should revere. It is so amazing. It is one of my new favorite books ever. And it's not that high up on my list, but you will see why. So American Psycho, the only thing that disappointed me or left me a little bit was the ending, but I still think the ending and the reaction that you have as a reader to that ending, I think it says a lot. I think it's very meaningful and interesting to discuss and to think critically about it. This is just an amazing story. It's such a wonderfully funny and dark and sexual experience. It's the best. I don't even know what to say. If you really want to hear me talk coherently and cleverly, hopefully, about this book and how it's wonderful, go and check out my review that I made for this book. I think it's in a recent reads wrap up. It's spectacular, and I need to read more by Bret Easton Ellis now. Coming in at number 4 is Fortune Smiles by Adam Johnson. This is a collection of short stories, and you know that I love a good short story collection, and this is one of the best ones that I've ever read in my life. Adam Johnson is a really unique and spectacular writer. His voice gives life to these people and these characters that are not often seen in literature. My favorite story in here is a great example of this. It's a story about a man who has very overtly sexual fantasies about children. And there's just a whole thing about pedophilia in here. It's an amazing story, and the stories in this collection are all perfect. They're all gems. Even the weakest story in the collection has something that will kill you, and something that will move you and make you think. It only has 6 stories, and they are all amazing. You should read short stories, and you should read this type of literature. This is amazing. Coming in at number 3 is Fates and Furies by Lauren Groff. And, looking back on my reading year and looking into this list and how I compiled this list, there are some books in here that I've mentioned in this top 10 that are probably better than Fates and Furies, that are better constructed and just better written. Disgrace, Giovanni's Room, these are novels that have, they should probably deserve a higher rating and higher grade overall, and they are better. But this was so magnificent, and it was such a spectacularly flawed, perfect kind of novel, you know what I mean? This is an experience that just dazzled me. It's exactly the type of book that I like, where there is beautiful language that you have to read over and over again to really make it part of you, and to really savor the musicality of the writing. Lauren Groff doesn't write. Lauren Groff paints using words and sings using words. This is a spectacular novel. I know that a lot of people feel very strongly about it, both positively and negatively. I just seem to fall in the positive camp. I adore this novel. Coming in at number 2 is the best novel that I read in 2017, and that is The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde by Junot Díaz. This was a winner of the Pulitzer Prize and of many other different things. This truly is a perfect novel, if you ask me. This is a wonderful story. It's the way that it's told, the way that it is constructed and written is absolutely genius, and I really want to read every single word that Junot Díaz has written. He constantly surprised me while reading this book. He really surprised me as to how much I was enjoying learning about this family and about these people and about this land and about this country and about this history that I never knew existed. And it was a book that informed me, that made me cry with laughter and with, it made me cry all sorts of tears. Tears of joy, of fun, of laughter, of sadness and pain and devastation. And it's such a humorous kind of tragedy that... And he something else that makes me say that this is the best novel or my favorite novel that I read this year is the way that it's told is very similar to the way that I personally speak and think, because I also have a lot to do with this kind of, my mother tongue is Spanish, but I use English all the time pretty much. So my mind is kind of a weird combination of Spanish and English, of Spanglish, if you will, and I usually think like that and speak like that. So reading this book and the way that it's written like that, both in English and Spanish, just made me relate to it all the more. It is a wonderful book. And coming in at number 1, my favorite book that I read in 2017, and it's a book that I want to read forever until I die, was absolutely hands down Apple of My Eye by Helen Hanff. This is a nonfiction book. It is kind of half memoir and half tourist guide to New York. It's a love letter to Manhattan, and if you know me as a reader, if you know me as a person at all, you know that this has all the right ingredients for me. So I will not talk about this book anymore because I have talked a lot about this in my channel this year. So just go and read it. This is an effing amazing book, even if you don't like nonfiction. And that's it. Those are all the books. I am really looking forward to reading your comments down below, and I will see you next time.